valley muffled by mist, a death was deemed natural until the truth began to whisper from the grave. Elva Zona Heaster, newlywed, found dead at the foot of a staircase. The doctor diagnosed an eternal faint or childbirth complications. But silence doesn't last when it comes to justice.
The husband dressed her in a high-neck gown, denied the townswomen any closeness, and her head, strangely limp, was held only by his hands. House, blanket, and funeral. Protection or cover-up.
For 4 consecutive nights, her mother swore she saw her daughter. Not in dreams, in flesh and bone. He killed me, snapped my neck, she said. Nothing logical, nothing conventional, but that stirred something.
The prosecutor agreed. The body was exhumed, and the autopsy was clear. Broken neck, crushed trachea, finger marks that had seized her breath. What the veil hid, science revealed.
Trout Shoe, the grieving blacksmith, was convicted of murder after barely an hour of deliberation. The law didn't blame a ghost, but without that ghost, he might walk free today.
In Greenbrier, death did not consume her truth. Her voice was louder than the silence. So then, sometimes, does justice rise from the impossible?
Welcome to another night where we unearth secrets we thought were buried. This time we dive into the winter of 1897 in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, a land shrouded in mist and sorrow where a 23-year-old young woman was found dead, and something refused to stay silent.
Her name was Zona Heaster. Captivating, dreamy. Newlywed with a spark of rebellion for escaping the valley's mediocrity, but her light was smothered before it could burn out, and a sinister veil wrapped around her.
3 months after marrying Trout Shoe, a blacksmith with a dim gaze and a suspicious past, Zona was found dead at the foot of the stairs. The diagnosis: death by childbirth or nervous collapse. Someone called it an eternal faint, but something never added up.
He dressed her in a high-neck gown and a veil that pressed against her chin. No one, absolutely no one, was allowed to prepare her. The body was his, or so he wanted it to seem. Even her head seemed to float without real support.
But there was one who refused to accept that silence. Her mother, Mary Jane Heaster. 4 nights in a row, Zona appeared to her, not in dreams. With a voice broken by death, she explained how she had been killed. He broke my neck. That was no lament. It was an accusation.
The valley trembled. The prosecutor exhumed the body, and there it was, a fractured neck, crushed trachea, handprints that stole her breath. Zona wasn't buried twice. She was vindicated.
That voice rising from the grave was the uprising the system couldn't suppress, a spark of justice seized by the inexplicable.
The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout.
Welcome to Greenbrier County, West Virginia. A region so hidden that the mist not only covers the land, it silences its secrets. It was January of 1897, and life there seemed stuck on pause.
There lived Zona Heaster Shoe, only 23 years old, married just 3 moons ago to a man new to the town, a blacksmith named Trout Shoe. Their union was like a whisper of wind, swift, fleeting, and fatal.
On January 23rd, a boy found her lying at the foot of the stairs. No screams, only her empty eyes staring at the sky. The doctor diagnosed an eternal faint. The town whispered death by childbirth, and the veil. Her voice seemed to have been silenced too soon.
But Zona's voice didn't silence itself. It was her mother, Mary Jane, who awakened it. After 4 consecutive apparitions, not dreams, she said, the young woman returned to demand justice. A young life demanded truth.
What was missing wasn't just justice, it was someone willing to listen beyond the silence. No one noticed the husband dressed the body, placed a strangling veil, and refused to let other women participate in the mourning ritual. A violation of custom and a silent clue.
She wasn't just a young wife. She was a dry echo of stolen dreams. And what that valley needed wasn't a burial, but a confession. It was her voice, beyond the mud and the dead birds at dawn, that demanded the examination, which would reopen everything.
And so it was, in the midst of mourning and stillness, that an unthinkable voice broke the seal of silence. The mother, consumed by grief, reported that her daughter could not rest.
Mary Jane Heaster insisted, night after night, that Zona spoke to her from the grave. He killed me. He broke my neck. It wasn't a nightmare. It was a crystal-clear accusation.
Her grief-stricken voice achieved the impossible. It pierced through official indifference. The prosecutor, after sleepless hours with a devastated mother, agreed. The body would be exhumed. Justice shaken in motion.
And the earth trembled. The body laid bare for the judgment of the living. The neck broken. The trachea crushed. Invisible hands confirmed what only a whisper knew.
Imagine Mary Jane alone in her frozen home, with the memory of her daughter carved into her chest. In front of the judge, before the world, to whisper that she saw a ghost meant risking her dignity, the sanity of a mother.
For days, she walked the fine line between faith and disbelief. Could she dare to say it out loud? To claim that Zona spoke to her from the grave? That she told her who killed her, yet something stronger than fear urged her to act?
It was her child, her memory, her deepest love. That desperation drove the moment she crossed the courthouse door. It wasn't faith, it was necessity. A mother who only wanted justice.
That isn't the moment of conviction. It's the heartbeat before the leap. The instant you decide whether to let silence win, and she didn't.
Imagine Mary Jane Heaster defenseless, facing the valley's cold and the judgment of the town. It wasn't faith that led her to the prosecutor's office. It was a mother's fury that would not accept her daughter's silence. Preston believed her, or pretended to. In his office, the case was revived. He ordered Zona's body exhumed. It was the act that turned rumor into tangible evidence.
Under the frost of February 1897, they unearthed the truth. Neck broken between the first vertebrae, crushed trachea, invisible fingers marking betrayal. It wasn't a whisper. It was a revelation that shattered impunity.
It wasn't the ghost. It was Mary Jane, that mother who sought justice, armed only with her truth. That conscious leap began the real trial and changed history. As Mary Jane unearthed unearthed the truth from the grave, another key figure emerged from the shadows of silence. Prosecutor John Alfred Preston, the man who held not only the law on his desk, but the endless seed of human power.
Preston didn't believe in ghosts, but he believed in unanswered questions. After hours with Mary Jane, he agreed to reconsider the case. He visited the doctor, and that was another broken echo. The physician admitted his exam had been superficial, no urgency, just negligence.
It was Preston who validated the path to justice. He ordered the exhumation. He traveled with a private note. Act despite fear of ridicule. What happened next was a consequence no one expected. Beneath the earth, handed over to the law, lay the evidence and the horror.
The subplot wasn't just the prosecutor. It was the bridge between the real and the impossible, the tangible world that, for an instant, believed in the inaudible. And what was unearthed should have been its mirror, a mother, a voice, a monstrous crime.
Preston represents what every story needs. The man who confronts doubt and still acts. Justice began because one man dared to listen to what no one wanted to believe, and to unearth what no one wanted to see. The earth was still frozen when they exhumed her body. January had passed, but the frost still clung to Zona's coffin, as if death refused to let her go. And then, for the first time, her voice wasn't a whisper. It was evidence.
They took her to an old schoolhouse. No prayers, no flowers. Just the echo of footsteps on worn wooden floors, and the shared fear of everyone present. The coroner opened the casket, and the silence shattered like a muffled scream.
Her neck crushed between the first and second vertebrae. Her trachea collapsed, and on her still fresh skin, the marks of fingers that didn't caress, but squeezed until her soul went silent.
Trout Shue, the widower, the husband who cried in public, but forbade anyone from touching the body, the one who dressed her in white with a veil, as if her funeral were a macabre wedding. It was his third marriage. The previous ones ended in suspicion, graves, and silence.
And Mary Jane, the mother, she stood before the court like a broken woman, but with a burning truth in her throat. I didn't dream. Zona spoke to me. 4 times. She told me who did it, how he did it, where it hurt.
And they didn't lock her away. They didn't ignore her. They listened. Because the body said the same thing as the spirit.
The trial was brief, but eternal. The newspapers called it madness, the neighbors, divine punishment, and the jury, justice.
And so, a mother alone, with her soul shattered, defied logic, the system, and death, and won. Because sometimes love doesn't just survive death, it awakens it.
Until then, the story seemed like a small town fable, a whisper between mountains, a tale told by a desperate mother. But that day, the day of the verdict, something changed forever.
The jury returned after just over an hour. The words fell like stones on a freshly opened grave. Guilty of first-degree murder.
Trout Shue was sentenced to life in prison, and as they led him away in handcuffs, the crowd demanded something more. Not justice, blood. They planned to lynch him, hang him in the square, burn his memory with the same fury he used to extinguish Zona that the sheriff knew. He hid him in another county, removed him from the ending the town wanted, and maybe the one he deserved. And still, he didn't escape the story.
He died 3 years later, in prison, alone, sick, without confession, without forgiveness, just a name carved into a cell wall, and a shadow that followed him to the end.
Because since then, no one remembers him as a blacksmith, nor as a widower, but as the only man in U.S. history convicted by the testimony of a ghost.
And on moonless nights, they say a voice can still be heard among the trees, not Zona's, not Mary Jane's, but his, begging silence to return him to the dark.
The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out.
Today, a simple plaque stands by the roadside near Sam Black Church, West Virginia. Like a silent witness, it tells in stone something history rarely admits. The only known case in which the testimony of a ghost helped convict a murderer.
A building that once held court still holds the voices of that night, where a jury heard more than laws. They heard a scream from the other side.
Zona Heaster Shoe lies in a simple grave, under a name that whispers her legend. But her story is no longer buried. It has become myth, warning, and an eternal memory that transcends silence.
And that is the true legacy. It wasn't human justice that wrote her story. It was a mother who dared to believe in the impossible. A voice born from grief that became unextinguishable.
Greenbrier changed, but not just because of laws or ghosts. It changed because that time someone listened to what they shouldn't have, and in that echo sparked a light that never goes out.
So the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again.
That's right. Never goes out.